Hi, welcome to the session number 10, Risk Management. Now let's have a look at plan risk responses process. Obviously, the main goal is to plan the responses for the risks identified. This is the process of developing options and actions to enhance opportunities and to reduce threats to project objectives. It addresses the required resources and activities into the budget. So you're basically asking, what are we going to do about each top risk occurred in our project? Doing something to prevent threats before they occur. The intention is that. Doing something to make sure opportunities happen. So if you have a positive risk, you want to emphasize on it. You want to encourage that is occurring. Decrease the probability and impact of the threats is a clear goal that is there in this state. Increase the probability and impact of opportunities is also another goal. For remaining, threats cannot be eliminated. So what do you do if there are risks that cannot be fully eliminated? Well, you could do something if the risks happen. Example, contingency plans. Do something if contingency plans are not effective. They're called fallback plans. So you plan for contingency, and if the contingency doesn't work the way you expect, then you go for the fallback plan. So in a case of a software release, you may roll back to the previous version. That is a fallback plan. So there are quite a few strategies to come up with the risk response. So let's have a look at that. Strategies for negative risks, or known as threats. Now these are the widely used methods. You of course can customize it, but I think within this range you can pretty much handle any given risk. So these are the negative risk responses. Avoid, that is obviously avoiding, trying to avoid the risk that is to occur. Transfer. So you're working on a project, you may transfer the same risk to another project who you think could handle it better than your team, or it's less impactful on the delivery. So there can be many reasons. You are simply transferring the risks that could occur to your team, your project context, into another. Mitigate. So this is the very famous response that most of the project teams come up, but that's not the only response that you can come up. Just trying to mitigate every risk doesn't make sense. Accept. So if a risk happens, you're going to accept it. So that is this type of risk. So what are the strategies for positive risks? These are the opportunities. So an opportunity comes up, how do you respond? That is what we are talking here. One is exploit. You're gonna exploit it. Enhance. So you're gonna enhance the risk that is happening. That is, of course, an opportunity. Share. You may share that with other teams, other project contexts, so that you gain that benefit further. Accept. When an opportunity comes up, you can simply accept it. So let's again go back to these strategies, try to discuss them a bit more. So these are the negative strategies. Number one, avoid. Eliminating the threat or protect the project from its impact is known as avoiding. Example, removing related work package, person, etc. Transfer. Shifting the impact of a threat to a third party together with ownership of the response. It involves payment of a risk premium to taking party. Example, using insurance, subcontracting a riskier part, handing it over to another team who is competent enough is a way of transferring. Mitigate. Reducing the probability of occurrence or impact of risk is known as mitigation. Example, conducting more tests, choosing a more stable supplier, prototype development, etc. Accept. Acknowledgement of risk and not taking any action unless the risk happens is known as an accept. Accepting the risks. Example, establishing contingency reserves, time, money, resources to handle risk when they happen. Exploit. These are now, let's have a look at the positive risks and their responses. These are the strategies for responding to positive risks. Exploit. Ensuring that the opportunity is realized. Example, assigning most talented resource to reduce time, using new technologies to reduce cost, etc. Enhance. Increasing the probability and the positive impact of an opportunity is known as enhancing. Example, adding extra resources to an activity to finish early, which is also known as crashing. Share is another response to a positive risk. Allocating some or all the ownership of the opportunity to a third party is known as sharing the risks. Example, partnership, teams, joint ventures. Accept. Willing to take advantage of opportunity if it happens, but not actively pursuing it. Contingent response strategies. Designed for use only if certain events occur. Events that trigger contingency response should be defined and tracked. These risk responses are called contingency plans or fallback plans. Example, if SPI falls down to 0.9, add extra one more resource to the project. Expert judgment is another tool. As we discussed already in the previous slides, you will pick certain experts, could be individuals or the groups or the teams, to seek advice and consultation on the risks that can happen. So let's have a look at the outputs of risk responses. So at the end of the planning risk responses, these are the different forms of responding to the risks. In other words, outputs. Project management plan updates. Now, at the end of the planning, you may go back to the project management plan and update it. So what do you update there? Schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, procurement management plan, human resource management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. So in case any of these documents, management plans are affected, you got to go and update that. Risk register updates. The other document that you must update is a risk register. Once you identify the risk responses plan, you must go back to the risk register and update it. So you basically can look at the remaining risks after the plan resources and update that. You can also look at the contingency plans or fallback plans. Are we intact? Risk response owners. Who is responsible for their risk? Secondary risk. A risk response can generate another risk. Risk triggers. Events triggering contingency plans, contracts, reserves to be used in case of an emergency. They all have to be updated based on the plan risk responses process. Important notes. Now, these are some of the things that you need to remember in terms of plan risk responses process. Contingency reserves are put for known risks. Remember, so if you have set of known risks, you allocate contingency reserves, knowing that this may occur. If they occur, this is the contingency to use. Management reserves are put for unknown risks. Non-critical risks are documented in watch list and then visited periodically. More than one response strategy can be chosen for a risk. So that's a good point. It's not just one risk response that you can come up for one given risk. You may come up with multiple risks and try. The most important item to address in meeting is the risks. This is one main crucial areas that the project management team and the project manager has to focus. Your ability to manage the risks effectively will allow you to deliver the project successfully. Risks are addressed as below in meetings. What is the status of risks? Are there any new risks? Or are there any changes in probabilities and impacts of risks? You keep asking these questions during your meetings.